Trump's got trouble. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Obama's back and he's going to cause some trouble. He has stayed mostly quiet since leaving office, but that changed today after President Trump said he would remove the protections for hundreds of thousands of young immigrants known as Dreamers. The move was announced by Attorney General Jeff Sessions today. Let's watch.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded. The executive branch, through DACA, deliberately sought to achieve what the legislative branch specifically refused to authorize on multiple occasions. Such an open-ended circumvention of immigration laws was an unconstitutional exercise of authority by the executive branch.
Well, in a statement today, President Trump said, "I do not favor punishing children, most of whom are now adults, for the actions of their parents. But we must also recognize we are a nation of opportunity because we are a nation of laws." Well, the move fulfills a campaign pledge Donald Trump made, but since taking office, he has softened his rhetoric a bit on the Dreamers, promising to, quote, show great heart. He was asked about that today. Let's watch.
Thank you.
Mr. President, how much of DACA decision treating Dreamers with heart?
Well, I have a great heart for the folks we're talking about, a great love for them. And people think in terms of children, but they're really young adults. I have a love for these people, and hopefully now Congress will be able to help them and do it properly. Really, we have no choice. We have to be able to do something, and I think it's going to work out very well. And long term, it's going to be the right solution.
Well, as I said, former President Barack Obama responded rather dramatically. In a statement, he said this is about basic decency. Quote, to target these young people is wrong because they have done nothing wrong. It is self-defeating because they want to start new businesses, staff our labs, serve in our military, and otherwise contribute to the country we love. And it is cruel. What if our kid's science teacher or our friendly neighbor turns out to be a dreamer? Where are we supposed to send her? To a country she doesn't know or remember, with a language she may not even speak? Well, there are other protests across the country in reaction to the announcement from the White House. And now the question is, what will Congress do? Will it pass a bill saving those who were brought here in their youth? For more on this and lots of other things, I'm joined by Senator Al Franken of Minnesota. Anyway, thank you, and congratulations on your book, Giant of the Senate, appropriately titled. Let's get to this thing.
Right, yeah.
It seems like Trump has thrown a hot potato. He didn't want to say, I'm going to give these kids the chance that Obama gave them to stay here, even though they were brought here not against their wills, but against their will, but by their parents. I'm going to let them stay and not be prosecuted. He's saying, let Congress do it. What do you make of that? Why do you do it that way?
Well, first of all, the executive order that President Obama gave on this was actually lawful. President Reagan did a similar thing. George H.W. Bush did a similar order. So that's bogus. I guess he was doing it to appeal to his base, which is really the only people who are for getting rid of DACA. It's 2-1 the American people are for it, because they know that these are people who came to America as children. Their parents brought them here. And in many cases, probably in most cases, America is the only country they know. Yeah. And I think everything that that former President Obama said is absolutely true. If
all that's true, and it's a legitimate bill, a legitimate law by executive order, why don't Congress just pass it tomorrow morning? Why don't you just pass it both houses, Senate, the President, move on?
Well, I hope we can. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow. We have to get the votes for this.
Well, is it hard to get 50 votes for DACA, do you think?
I actually think that we're going to be able to do this, and it depends on what bill we pass. But I know that Senator Durbin has been a leader on this for his.
Well, you're going to offer a rider attached to some bill and just move it, I would think.
I
have an old memory of how things used to be done on the Hill. I don't know why it's so damn hard to do something everybody thinks is a decent thing to do.
Well, I'm not sure everybody thinks it's a decent thing to do. We have a lot of Republicans who don't think, or for some reason.
Screw them. If they vote against this, you've got them nailed. You got the moderates in the suburbs finished. Charlie Dent's not going to vote against this. All the suburban Republicans would not want to be known as the bad guys on this baby, would they?
I think that you're right.
Maybe Barletta.
I think we are going to find the votes for this, and I hope we do this soon. so that those people don't have to live in this kind of peril.
I think you could be president someday. That's just my view. You don't have to confirm it or not,
Okay.
because I think you got the wit and the brain to do it.
Okay.
What would you do with North Korea right now? Because I don't think it's all Trump's fault.
That's why I don't want to be president, because I'd have to be deciding.
What do you do with this guy,
Look,
Kim Jong-un? Apparently he says he's he's exploded a hydrogen bomb. It took the Soviets a number of years to get that, and now this guy's got one.
There are no good options with North Korea. They have conventional weapons, as you know, artillery pointed at Seoul. There are 20 million people who live in Seoul. We have 28,000 American troops there. We have over 100,000 Americans living in South Korea. There'll be millions of people killed immediately if we took some kind of military action.
So if we did a surgical strike even and hit them right on the nose with all the right and didn't kill anybody else, they'd just launch, right?
I think they would. And Kim Jong-un cares, I think, only about himself. And this is the point. We're dealing with someone here who we don't know his entire mental state. And the worst thing that we can do is create a miscalculation. And I think that's why we have to, that's why President Trump's rhetoric, I think, has been very dangerous. Look, we're in the UN now trying to get energy sanctions against them. China needs to cooperate with that.
Is he part to blame?
Who, President Trump?
For this crisis, for this brinkmanship?
I think that he has escalated the brinkmanship. He's not to blame for their having a nuclear program. He's you don't blame everything on Donald Trump. But to me, the scariest part thus far of this, in many ways, has been that we know from past crises that what you don't want is a miscalculation and caused by this kind of escalation.
Do you trust Jim Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, to hold off on keeping the president from moving
I think
impetuously?
I think that the Secretary of Defense is a good influence there, and so is the National Security Advisor. I think he understands what would happen if we attacked.
You don't think this is a wag the dog situation, do you? Where the president's creating a situation?
No, this is the wag the dog. If you remember the movie, it didn't involve millions of people
it wasn't
being
real.
killed.
Let's talk about something we know is getting real, which is Special Prosecutor Bob Mueller, Robert Mueller. If you look at all the reporting, and the reporting's been excellent in the major papers, the metropolitan papers, the Times, the Post, mainly, but also the Journal, you're getting a look at a guy who's getting close to the bone. He seems like he's getting into criminal tax problems, getting into the real financial interstices of the Trump operation, and also looking at obstruction. I mean, is it getting too late for Trump to fire this guy? He's gotten already so far. Or can he just pardon everybody?
Well, his way of firing him would be a Saturday Night Massacre. I mean, he couldn't, he'd have to go through Rosenstein because Sessions has recused himself. I don't think that's going to happen, but you can't.
Do your Republican colleagues back you on that? Do you ever hear them in the cloakroom saying, if Trump does that, that's the red line for me. If he fires this guy, if he fires,
I've heard discussion that I don't go into their cloakroom usually. Sometimes I'm looking for somebody.
Don't they go to yours ever?
Yeah, they do. Actually, we do. Actually, but
that could be a problem. That could be the problem. You don't go into either other's cloakrooms.
Bob Mueller has the trust of everybody. I think in Congress and Washington. He was confirmed 100-0 twice to be FBI director. He is going to see where the facts go, and I think people should be patient. I think they should be patient.
You think he's got Trump's taxes?
I don't know. I think he should. I think he should get them. I think that there's obviously some financial relationship between the Russians and Trump. That's what his son Donald Jr. said in 2008 when he said there's a disproportionate amount of money coming from the Russians. It's in the business in the United States. This is how the Russians traditionally sink their hooks into people. They did this in Eastern Europe. That's called the Kremlin playbook. This fits a pattern, and I think that yes, I think that Mueller will be looking at his financial.
If Donald Trump approved a letter that said the reason he was firing Comey was to be dealing with the Russian matter, would you consider that obstruction? If that was the reason he was firing, and that was in the letter that he approved, he didn't send, but he approved that letter apparently.
Yeah, I hear there is a letter out there that may go further to proving obstruction. He actually said it was because of Russia. That's what he said in the interview on this network or on NBC. And I don't know if that amounts to obstruction.
Proving a letter to go to the guy you're firing and saying it's about Russia would be, to me, pretty close to what you're.
Well, how about saying in an interview is the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, speaking of interviews and the stagecraft of politics, Hillary Clinton has had a couple chances the last couple weeks to push the book, and I know how you push books. Sometimes you push your book this
You go on your show.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes that helps. By the way, your book's called
Senate.
Let's talk about Hillary Clinton posed a couple of things, but one of the things that grabbed a lot of people's attention was going after. Well, let's watch what happened here. What she said about what happened with her opponent, Donald Trump.
We were on a small stage, and no matter where I walked, he followed me closely, staring at me, making faces. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Do you stay calm, keep smiling, and carry on as if he weren't repeatedly invading your space? Or do you turn, look him in the eye, and say loudly and clearly, "Back up, you creep. Get away from me. I know you love to intimidate women, but you can't intimidate me, so back up."
So he pulls the Godzilla number, comes up behind her like I don't know what he's doing. He obviously wanted to make her uncomfortable. She said she felt uncomfortable, maybe a professionally uncomfortable, meaning I shouldn't have to put up with somebody doing this to me. What do you make of it? What are politicians, male or female, supposed to do when some lug comes at you?
Well, first of all, Al Gore is not a lug, but you'll remember
he did the same thing
in the 2000 debate. He came up, he invaded George W. Bush's space.
What about Dingo Norwood?
But wait a minute. But Bush was talking, and he went.
He checked him.
He just went like this. Hi, And
could Hillary Clinton have done that by Trump standing behind her?
She could have. I mean, obviously, in the book there, she's saying, "Or should I have done this?" And I think the answer to that is yes. You should have done.
Well, let's talk about that because I get the
feeling didn't have to be didn't have to be exactly what you.
You know what's happened to American politics under Trump, but if he runs again, it'll happen again. It's not about resume or qualifications necessarily, or preparation or seriousness. It's about how you behave on the stage. You get somebody, calls him Little Marco and makes fun of him sweating too much, and he's off the stage. He calls somebody else Hillary, crooked Hillary. It's on the stage. It's in the moment. How do you take on a guy like Trump in the moment without just being more of a smart aleck than he is?
Very often.
I'm asking you to be a smart aleck, but I think that is the answer. Is you got to take him on.
I'm not sure that you have to beat Trump to beat Trump. Very often the president who gets elected is the opposite of the last guy. If you think about Obama beating succeeding Bush, W was a guy who went with his gut, wasn't necessarily the most articulate guy. You got a guy who was no drama Obama and who was incredibly eloquent and well-spoken. That's followed by the opposite, Trump. So maybe the next person to run against Trump shouldn't feed into your narrative there, which is always a mistake, Chris.
Yeah, the last war. Trump's going to be there, but Trump will be there again. Anyway, you announced today that you're going to oppose the president's nominee for U.S. District Court, or U.S. Circuit Court, David Strauss.
Yeah.
He's from your state. Why are you against him?
Look, I believe in an independent court. Trump has nothing but contempt for federal judiciary. He's shown that with, questioning the ethnicity of judges, other decisions.
Mexican-American president, yeah.
They did not follow the normal consultation with us. And this guy, Strauss, who, and I shouldn't call him this guy, Justice Strauss, good guy, nice guy, but his jurisprudence, he was a Clarence Thomas clerk. He said Thomas was his mentor. He was chosen by the Right-Wing Heritage Foundation and the Right-Wing Federalist Society as part of the shortlist for the Supreme Court. We were not consulted on this. That is the normal process. This is different than the process has been. That's how you get consensus judges. With the court shouldn't lurch from one extreme to another. With that, this has been in place for decades and decades, where the White House consults with the senators in this case, and they did not with us.
Can you stop them? They only need 50 votes. Can you stop them?
Well, we have a tradition called the Blue Slip. Chuck Grassley, the chairman of the committee, wrote a wrote an op-ed in the Des Moines Register about how important the blue slip is.
Means a home state senator can do it?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like you're going to do it, are you?
I said I'm not going to turn in my blue slip on Judge Strauss. Justice Strauss.
Senator Al Franken, author of China, the Senate's still way up there on the bestseller list.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.